The book that I chose to read for this assignment was called The First Kiss Hypothesis. The main premise of the story is that there's this girl who um, has this hypothesis that for every person, there's one other person that when they have their first kiss, it's gonna, quote, create thunder, lightning, and earthquakes. So that's her hypothesis. So in the book, she basically chooses to kiss a bunch of random guys, basically to try to find her soulmate, I guess. And in the meantime, her best friend, who was her first experiment, I guess, and they had a terrible first kiss because of extenuating circumstances. Um, they he's trying to convince her that her hypothesis is false and that they should get together basically because they're perfect for each other. Anyways, obviously you can tell this is a romance book. The first example of chemistry that I found in there is at the beginning of the book when she's explaining her hypothesis. And she tells the story of her grandparents and how they first met and how their first kiss did the things that I said before, thunder, shook, all that stuff. Um, and she says, if you hear a story like that enough and you're obsessed with the laws that govern the universe like I am, eventually you come up with a working scientific theory, a testable hypothesis. For each person in the world, there is exactly one other person who, at first kiss, causes an immediate and intense reaction. And she says, it's like the chemistry experiment last year when we mixed sugar with sulfuric acid. Instantly, there was smoke and fizz everywhere. So obviously that has a literal example of chemistry, but also just the example of a hypothesis that's testable, which is important in chemistry because if it's not a testable hypothesis, then you can't really apply the laws of chemistry to it. And then the second example that I have is she's talking about her best friend Eli and how she kind of wishes she could give him a second chance, but she knows she can't. And so she says, to be completely honest, sometimes I wish we could go back in time and try again, but the scientist in me knows that's not how it works. My hypothesis is clear, a reaction either happens or it doesn't. And as much as Eli tempts me, I will not be one half of an inert compound. And obviously it's saying that her hypothesis, she's trying to stick to her hypothesis, a reaction either doesn't happen or it does, which is true. Usually the reaction either happens or it doesn't. And then also an inert compound, which is um, a compound that is not chemically reactive, and obviously, if they are an inert compound, then they're not compatible, according to her theory. And then the last quote that I have is it's about the guy, Eli, and in the end, he's trying to win her over by baking her a pie because in their childhood they first met and they ate pie together and they have a thing called pie fixes everything, PFE. And so learns how to bake her a pie and he says, I went to the store today, bought some blueberries and worked on a pie. And the chemistry of baking is kind of what made me choose this quote because like different compounds are combined and heat is added to make everything into a new compound, which is a delicious pie, hopefully, if everything goes well. And um, there's also some other chemistry in that, like when you add water to the dough when you're creating baking a pie, it creates a gluten network that holds the dough together. And if you have too much water or not enough water, then it won't work correctly and the reaction won't be right. Just like in chemistry, if you are trying to neutralize a compound or something like that, if you don't have the right amounts of each compound, it's not going to create the right reaction.